Hello and welcome to another video. One thing you hear and see a lot about the ZX Spectrum Next is people saying, when's it coming out? And I didn't back the Kickstarter the first time, so when can I buy one afterwards? Well, when's it coming out? We don't know yet. Originally the Kickstarter date said January 2018, but there's been a number of keyboard issues to be addressed, and I know I've said this before, but I'd rather they spend the time making sure that everything's perfect than rush it and be Fallout 76. As for making more, it's widely expected that there will be a second Kickstarter once the first batch has been sent out, and by then all the issues will have been sorted out, so it will happen a lot more quickly. I know that while I've backed the ZX Spectrum Next accelerated version, which includes the real-time clock, Wi-Fi module and the Raspberry Pi Zero accelerator plugged into the accelerator port, I would also want to buy into a second Kickstarter, for the board only, and have that machine put into an original ZX Spectrum size case which has been created to house a ZX Spectrum Next. These are being made in limited quantities, and I would love to have this mixture of new and retro. I know the next step as an ideal is for the ZX Spectrum Next to be sold in shops, but one step at a time. I've been meaning to do some news vlogs for a little while, and so it may seem like I'm a little late to the party by beginning with update 48, but there's always a lot of news coming out about the Next, and there still will be once the first Kickstarter is shipped. Even today there's tons of ZX Spectrum homebrew games still being made, and more than I can keep up with. So I expect this will be the case when the ZX Spectrum Next is finally released. I'll go through the latest update, and please bear in mind that I don't understand every last element of technical detail, so I'll just go through it as it's presented. Update 48 refers to Update 47 and the keyboard issue, so I'll just briefly give a segment from that. We have been having problems with the composite keys when more than one key is needed for a result, such as Cap Shift plus 0 for delete or Cap Shift plus 5 for left arrow. In order to keep the key presses light and in line with modern typing requirements, we adopted a 2-layers keyboard matrix approach, replacing the original 3 layers from the Spectrum Plus and the 128. We experimented with the 3 layers and found the keys too heavy to press. And on to Update 48. If you're closely following the keyboard saga, for the avoidance of a stronger adjective, you may recall from the previous update that we had several solutions in testing for the keyboard membrane, such as interlaced contact points, Pac-Man contact points, and so on. While we were hopeful that one of the membrane designs would have solved the problem, we've now tested these solutions and none of them provide the accuracy we require. They've all failed. The keyboard engineers at the manufacturing company suggested that the silicon domes under the keys were to blame, as their contact point was too narrow to ensure the entirety of the contacts on the membrane were being pressed. They devised a new, revised dome and were about to work on its mould when we stopped the process. Basically, we suspected we would spend another couple of months on the version 2 dome solution and end up in the same place. There was also a significant risk that the larger domes would change the feel of the keyboard, a no-go scenario for the project. Therefore, we scrapped the contacts and domes avenues altogether and decided for a radical solution that, despite not being as elegant as one would like, is guaranteed to solve the problem once and for all, allowing us to move ahead and wrap up our next manufacturing. The next keyboard now has a third contact strip with 2 new lines, adding all the composite keys as unique keys, dispensing the special contacts, third layer, larger domes, etc. This is a definitive solution that we can implement fast by simply widening a slot on the case and reworking the membrane to route the composite keys to the new 2 added lines. This is where the new contacts will go, although in reality they will have the same alignment as a larger keyboard connector, so no twisting of the new tail, unlike what's shown here. Therefore, the keyboard blocker to the project is now solved at last. We're making the changes required to the case and membrane agreed with SMS, the manual soldering of the 2-pins connector on J15 during assembly, and once these are done, we'll trigger the mass production of the keyboard to ship them for assembly at Nottingham. It has been a hellish long road to this solution, and we owe a huge thanks to Alan Albright and Gary Lancaster for pushing this solution and firmware changes to make it work, perhaps taking a page from Amstrad's lessons. And also for every backer who has been holding its patience in check with this keyboard issue for so long. We couldn't ask for a better community and have a huge debt of gratitude to every backer. Now on to some great new stuff for the Next, because our project doesn't stop. Printer, Pipster / Next. If you have a Next with an ESP module and a spare Raspberry Pi, Model 2 or 3, and you're really missing your ZX or Alphacom 32 printers, Gary Lancaster and Darren Rimran have a treat for you. First you need to get a hold of a Pipster kit and then go to the SpecNext website to read the tutorial Gary wrote. This will enable you to do basic printing from your Wi-Fi enabled ZX Spectrum Next, but that's not where everything ends. because Darren Rimrun took it upon himself to make the Pipster print regular ULA and Layer 2 screens both in portrait and landscape mode. Since Darren was in a very good mood, he also decided to throw in optional dithering to emulate L2 colours more accurately. Do yourselves a favour and rush to the website listed to get the latest code, which is compatible with Gary's original code. Here's a nice video with Darren's 14th and finally successful try. New SD card image distribution site. Phoebus, answering the call of users asking for a smaller download that's already tested to work with a variety of SD cards, created a site specifically geared towards that, and C-Spec users, which is the ZX Spectrum Next emulator, that can now read SD card images directly, and it's located at the website there, which contains images of the distribution, together with the instructions of installation onto a card, in a variety of sizes, 2, 4, 8 and 16 gig images available. Also, in order to coincide with the next, pun definitely intended, distribution version, which will be out now, the site will also contain a new games-only distribution called Next Classics, which will be constantly updated to include all the latest games and playable demos for Next and NXT ZX ZVM. This way you don't have to mess around rearranging your main SD card just to update your games. Getting the best HDMI mode. A new test card feature has been added to the firmware, which cycles through all the video modes supported by the Next and allows you to choose the one which displays best on your monitor. This will be run the first time you ever turn your Next on, after which all the details will be saved onto your SD card and used automatically in the future. You can also choose it to run again by holding down a particular key when turning on or restarting, which is useful if you're going to use your Next with a different display. The Mutant Next, a firmware expansion. Other recent improvements to the firmware include an increase in the number of supported personalities that your Next can assume from 15 to 32, and the ability to abort changes to the startup options if you have made a mistake or change your mind. Next, ZXOS update. A new version of this is currently undergoing testing and it will be available soon. It includes 2 new doc commands which can convert Next basic programs to plain text and back again. This allows you to easily view or edit your Next basic programs on any other computer and then re-import and run them on the Next. Lords on the Next. Matt Davis, with the help of Simon Butler on the art front, continues apace on the Lords of Midnight for the Spectrum Next. You can follow the game on the official site listed there. Next update. We'll get the new keyboard membrane done, produce and ship those keyboards to the UK. The next update should feature a lot of keyboards going somewhere at last. So maybe I'm a bit late to the party with these, but as I say, there's always a lot of news to come out about the ZX Spectrum Next, so I'll bring you it as it develops. In the meantime, please like this video and share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already, and click on the little bell to get all the notifications, and cue Genesis.